Welcome to the American Orthotic and Prosthetic Association's 2020 Women in O&P event. On behalf of the Assembly Planning Committee, Board of Directors, and staff, it is my pleasure to welcome you. Today is Women's Equality Day, the day we commemorate the 1920 certification of the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, granting women the right to vote. What a day to be together to celebrate and connect with other women in the profession. We all make an impact, and I am proud to be a part of an organization that both recognizes the importance women play and helps facilitate the furthering of women in the profession. Today's program is intended to do just that, to help you improve your ability to navigate the interpersonal complexities you experience. Because we've all done a lot for O&P, but it is just the beginning. I want to thank the committee members that helped put together this successful program: Carrie Couple, Joyce Perrone, Kristen Pearson, Nita Bondre, and Joanna Kenton, as well as the fabulous AOPA staff. These ladies are just incredible and have done so much work to help us out. Betty Leppin, Joy Burwell, and Tina Carlson. They certainly made this event happen. Also, a big thank you to our sponsors, Hanger and Willowwood. Today's event would not have been possible without their support. I will now turn it over to their leaderships, Regina Wager and Mahesh Mansukani, to say a few words. Regina?
Thank you, Linda. And thanks to all of you. This event is for us, the women of O&P. We're here today to celebrate our successes and all we've done for the profession, as well as the individuals living with limb loss and limb impairment. It's an honor to be here with you today, representing SPS, as well as Hanger as a sponsor of this event, but also as a female in O&P. The profession needs all voices represented. To this end, I encourage each of you to be more involved in our profession, and that I also thank you for all that you do, and I hope that you enjoy today as a small token of our appreciation. Thank you. Mahesh?
You can hear me. Hope you can. Thank you, Regina. And just to echo what you just said, you know, I've been in the profession, I've been in the industry, what, 12, 13 years. And I have to tell you, in that time, pretty amazing change in terms of the inclusion of women in this industry. And so I feel pretty honored that Willowwood's able to sponsor this event. We appreciate everything you do. I think the industry, the patient base, will truly benefit from this level of diversity. So I just thank you for all that you do, and we appreciate the opportunity to sponsor the event.
Well, hello. Sorry, I was still muted there. Welcome. My name is Joyce Perrone. I'm thrilled to have the honor of serving on this wonderful committee. I encourage everyone out there, if you have opportunities, to volunteer, to do anything to forward the agendas of our national groups, please. You'll get more out of it probably than you can possibly put into it. It's a wonderful, wonderful group of people. So I'm just thrilled that you all joined us today, and know that our goal is not just to celebrate you, but also to give you an opportunity to elevate yourselves and other women in the field. I have absolutely no doubt our speaker, Martha Hamilton, who is the author of the book Going Reptile, How to Engage Your Inner Lizard leads to more fulfilling work and personal relationships, will do just this for you. As a special thank you for participating in this event, you will all receive a copy of the book. I have known Martha for many, many years, And I think that you'll find, as I have, that Martha has an uncommon blend of rational and intuitive, strategic and empathetic, practical and visionary qualities, and is truly one of the smartest as well as most kind-hearted and humble people I've ever met. She helps people see what's limiting, driving, and defining them, and thus opening up a whole new world of possibilities. Today, through interactive discovery, Martha will provide insights into your ways of navigating challenges, as well as help increase your awareness and how others respond to you. So important, more so now than ever. So the hope is that after participating, you will become more aware and able to improve your ability to navigate the interpersonal complexities you experience. So let's get to work and enjoy. And Martha, it's all yours. Take it away.
Thanks so much, Joyce. Thanks, Linda. And thanks everyone at AOPA. I'm super happy to be here with you guys today. What a fun thing we get to do. What we're going to do today is we're going to alternate between discovery, cognitive learning, meaning me talking, experiential learning. So we'll be playing, moving in and out of different things, and we're going to take a look, as Joyce said, at how engaging your inner lizard leads to more fulfilling work and personal relationships. So for today's exploration, the entry point I'm going to use is anger. Because for me, I've found in general that anger and the way we relate with anger and the way we hold that makes a huge difference in how we relate with ourselves and with other people. And I think it's one of the most misunderstood aspects of engaging our inner lizard for more fulfilling relationships. So in some of the experiential learning, we're going to use polls, which is a feature of Zoom. We're going to use the chat function. So if you hit chat at the bottom of your screen, you'll see a panel open up on the right-hand side. And we're going to be using some discovery through breakout groups. And so we'll be using lots of different features in Zoom and lots of different ways to look at this. And you don't have to do anything because Joy from AOPA is going to take care of this for us. She's our technical support today, and she's been doing a fabulous job in getting this all set up for you. So just sit back and be curious, and let's see what happens. So my goal today is for you to walk away having discovered something new about yourself, having a new perspective or a new way of making sense with what arises within and around you, and for you to walk away with new curiosity. So let's see what happens. So before I get too far ahead of myself, I want to learn a little bit about your relationship with Zoom. You know, we're looking at our relationships with ourselves. Let's look at our relationship with Zoom. So let's do a first poll. We can experiment, see how this works, and also get an idea of who's here. So Joy, if you could please put our first poll up, I would really appreciate that.
I am not. Tina, can I ask if you have the polls?
There we go. Poll number 1. And I believe you can pick multiple responses on this. So if you all could just please go ahead and respond to the poll. And Joy, as people are responding, can we go ahead and put the results up? You know, we're also accustomed to meeting together in an environment where people have worked on the AV and other things for years. And so we're all kind of navigating these new environments and working out how to do this. Joy, are we having issues with getting the poll results on the screen?
Yes, we are.
Okay. All right, well then let's do this a little bit less technical way. How many of you have worked with Zoom breakout rooms in the past? Just raise your hand like this. Keep your hand up, and then we can scroll through the screens and see how many people are familiar with Zoom. Okay, we have lots of people that have had experience with breakout rooms before. Oh, great, and we have people chatting too, saying no, they haven't. Great, so that gives us a sense. It looks like we're about 50-50 with people who have used Zoom breakout rooms and have not. What about polling? Have many of you used polling on Zoom before? Go ahead again, just raise your hand so we can see. Okay, quite a few people have used Zoom polling in the past. Very good. All right, well then that's great. This won't be too new for many of you, and for those that are, we'll get through it, we'll figure it out. So let's talk a little bit about Zoom functionality, just so we can get a sense for those that haven't done this. If you're on a computer, in the upper right corner, you'll see something that either says speaker view or gallery view. And if you click that, you can change the way you're viewing. So if you go to speaker view, then you'll see dots in the corner and you'll go back to gallery view. For those of you that are on an iPad or an iPhone, you may find these functions in different places. Also, look down on the bottom left. You'll see you will be muted. Joy will unmute you if you speak, but there's also a stop video button. So you can turn your video on and off. What I'd ask in this moment is if you could please turn your camera on, because the next thing we're going to be doing will be using visuals. So if you all could turn your camera on and put yourselves in gallery view, that would be great. So let's take a moment to get to know who's here. So what you'll see on your screen, if you're on an iPad, you probably have 9 people on your screen. If you're on a computer, you may have 25 or more if you have a really big screen. Go ahead and just click the arrows and move through the screens to get a sense of who's here. You know, if we're in a room in person, we're walking around, we're getting to know people, we're seeing what's there. But on a screen, we get to click through to see. And for those of you that have your cameras off, if you turn them on, that would be super helpful. So now what I'd like you to do is just take a moment, pick a page, and just look at the faces that are on the page, and just put your attention on someone who feels kind, who feels safe, and who feels friendly. And just notice that person for a moment. And just feel how that feels in your system. Could be somebody you know, could be somebody you've never met before, but something just tells you, oh, this person seems kind and friendly and safe. So now scroll to another page. Do that again. Just see if you find someone. Just let a face pop out at you. And just take a moment to visually, non-locally, non-verbally be with that person. Just see what happens. Scroll again and find a third person. See what happens for you. Okay. So in the chat box, just write a short note, a word or two. What happened for you? Did you feel things that were different with different people? Just write a short note so we can all get a sense of what happened for you. So I'm seeing positive energy, couldn't stop smiling. I smiled, a lot of smiling. Feel connected, it's contagious. Yeah. Nice. Calming, it felt nice. So one of the really great things about Zoom is that we get to see everyone's face. When we're in a room, one of the things that it's not so great is that we're often looking at people's backs. We really don't get to see everyone in the room unless we're walking around, but on Zoom we do. We get to see the faces. So positives and negatives of being in person and being online. Now I want you to do something else, if you would, please. Scroll through again and notice someone, whether you know them or not, you have no idea why, that somehow doesn't feel safe, feels a little irritating. Someone that you kind of would just want to, yeah, maybe someone you wouldn't approach to get to know. Just scroll through and just notice what happens in your system when you encounter that. How does your system react? How do you feel? Okay, and so we don't have to stay here too terribly long. Now just scroll through again and find someone again who feels friendly, safe, kind. And again, see how you feel with that person. And I see some people saying, I can't find anyone I wouldn't want to connect with. That's great. I mean, you guys are a great group. But what I'd like to do, Joy, I just want to check in. Are we any better with the polls, or are we going to walk away from those?
I think not. I need to walk away from it. I'm sorry.
No worries, no worries. So let's go ahead and use the chat to say, how was that for you? Did you notice a difference if you found someone that you felt differently with, and what happened for you? Just a brief statement. The expressions changed from smiling to scowling and serious. Anyone else notice anything else? Oh, tense, felt a little sad. Oh, some people wanted to smile more. Yeah. And some people didn't find anyone not to connect with. That's great. So just to notice that as we walk through life, we're constantly getting information from people that's not verbal, that's not a conversation, that is just coming into our systems. And often we're so busy and working so hard that we don't even notice this nonverbal information that's coming. But our system reacts. And even if you didn't find people that you would want to avoid, you may have found that you felt differently with different people. So this is just for us to notice. There is a lot of information that comes in non-verbally. Joy, are you able to go ahead and put up the slide? Very good. Okay, thank you. So what I want to talk about now is what I call the intensity meter, the 5 stages of intensity. And I understand that you all are going to get a copy of the book later on. This is just one page out of the book. What I want to talk about is the way we relate changes what possibilities we have in relating with people. So the 5 stages of intensity that I've just sliced the pizza into 5 stages, full on human, is we're comfortable, we're relaxed, we're deeply connected with ourselves, we're spacious, and we have plenty of space to connect with other people, no matter what comes up. Somebody's upset, something's happening, we're good, we can work with them. The pocket reptile is really, we're with someone, we're feeling pretty good. Maybe they say or do something that doesn't feel so good for us, but we recognize that, we notice it in ourselves, and we can include that, but we still can relate and we're in good shape. Really, I'm fine is the stage where I'm really not fine. I don't feel good about what's happening here, but I'm doing everything I can to act like it's all good. Zipped up is when I'm trying really hard to act like it's all good and I'm having a really hard time not just losing it. I'm having and maybe some of you have experienced that occasionally, where you're just working hard to make it look good, but it is not easy. And then full on reptile is when we can no longer suppress what's happening in us and it spills out. So I just use this as an intensity meter, a way for us to talk about the different things that happen for us and how we react. And in the book, I walk readers into recognizing how to get to know their inner lizard, because the more we get to know our reactivity, the more we engage our inner lizard, the more bandwidth we develop for navigating our lives. If we're not relating to what's happening inside us, and we're not including it and we're trying to suppress it, we easily can end up somewhere between really I'm fine and full on reptile. The more we're able to say, yeah, this is what's happening for me inside ourselves, and I can include that, and I can still relate with this other person, then we have a lot more bandwidth. So the more intensity in ourselves, the less space. I mean, that's obvious. But the less space means there isn't as much space for new possibilities. So actually, the less my perspective is, the less we include what's happening in us, the more we try to suppress it, the less space there is for new possibilities, even though sometimes we get the idea it works the other way around. So I just want to propose that. So it would be great if everyone were wired in a way that we automatically felt kind and friendly and safe around them. It would be great. But we don't often have that opportunity. We are all wired differently. And so some of you look through the screen and say, oh, I feel connected with everyone. And others may look through the screen and say, oh, I don't feel so connected with this person or that person. And we really want to include the reality of this. We're not wired the same. The same things don't make different ones of us feel safe. And so we want to be able to include that sometimes it won't feel that way. And how do we react to our own feelings? And at work, just work and partnerships are the two places typically where these challenges come up for us. And so we'd like to think, oh yeah, we go to work and everything's cool and everything's great. But actually, that's one of the places where our challenges will come up the most loudly. Joy, can you go ahead and put us back to full screen with all the people? Thank you so much. So what I'd like to do now is just pause and see if anyone has any questions before I go further. And if you have a question, just go to the bottom of the screen and click Participants, and then click Raise Hand, and Joy will go ahead and unmute you.
Martha, I'm not seeing any raised hand at the moment.
Very good. Okay. So one thing we can run into, and this is very, very common, but it's often not recognized, is we run into this idea that we can ask other people to be different so that we don't have to feel the way we feel. It's the question, could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way? And we often don't recognize that that's what we're asking. Could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way? But when we do that, on the surface, it can appear like a reasonable ask. But underneath, it's really actually a huge trap. Because this is saying, I need you to be different so that I can be okay. And it's rare that somebody else organizes their life in a way to make it good for us. So how many of you recognize that? That at some points, you actually may pressure or subtly, or not so subtly, ask someone else to be different so that you don't have to feel the way you feel. And we don't have polls, so if you can just raise your hand like this, that would be super helpful. And just keep your hands up because there's a lot of pages to scroll through. Yeah, so we have quite a few people raising their hands. And those of you that have your cameras turned off, since we don't have polling, if you turn your, thanks for putting your hands up, you can put them down now. Those of you that have your cameras turned off, if you put them back on, it's really helpful since we don't have access to the polling. So again, this question of, could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way? How many of you have had the experience of someone else asking you to be different so they don't have to feel the way they feel? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, and this is where I wish we had the poll. So let's just try this. For how many of you does that make you feel happy? Not so much. For how many of you do you end up feeling angry? Yeah. Maybe take a moment in the chat and just write, when someone else asks you to be different so they don't have to feel the way they feel, what's the emotion that often comes up for you? Oh, resentful. Yeah. Passive aggressive, frustrated, helpless, sad. Yeah. Self-conscious and inadequate. Yeah. Or whatever, we have a job to do. So just getting past it, angry and defiant, insignificant. Yeah, so we can see that the pressure that we put on people when we ask them to be different so we don't have to feel the way we feel, or the pressure someone else puts on us asking us to be different so they don't have to feel the way they feel, may not lead to a more productive environment. If someone's feeling insignificant or angry or defiant or inadequate or sad or helpless or frustrated and resentful, I'm going to propose that that takes away bandwidth from our functioning, how we would otherwise function. So just to recognize that even though we may not realize that's what's happening, it actually has an impact on our own capacity to operate and that of others. Someone said they feel humbled by their willingness to be openly vulnerable. Yeah, I get that. I'm going to propose there's a difference between being vulnerable and asking someone else to be different so I don't have to feel that way. Vulnerable is merely sharing what's happening in them. The other is a request for someone else to be different. So again, that's kind of a precise and subtle differentiation, but I think it makes a big difference. And my experience is that it's rarely welcomed, as you all are saying in the chat, and it's not effective to be asked to be different. Occasionally we get short-term compliance, but as quite a few people said, it can really lead to resentment. So here's a piece I want to bring in. Of course we have a preference for another person to be different so we don't have to feel that way. Of course we have that preference. But that's something that we can relate to within ourselves. Once we get out there asking them to be different, now we've created a pressure that's not going to support either ourselves or the other person. So the question isn't what's our preference. The question is, do we need them to be different so we can be okay? And we saw through looking at it in ourselves, when other people do that, it doesn't feel good. It feels awful. So let's go back. If you could, Joy, put slide number 1 back up again. I'd really appreciate that. Okay, well, as Joy's working on putting slide number 1 back up again, I'll just go ahead and talk from it. You may remember at one point we had full-on human on one end and it went to full-on reptile on the other. What I wonder is, as we pressure the environment around us to be different so we don't have to feel the way we feel, or someone else pressures us so that we don't have to feel the way we feel, where do we go on this continuum? As that pressure increases, do you imagine we move more toward pocket reptile and full-on human, or more toward zipped up and full-on reptile? And if you want to make notes in the chat of what you're seeing with that, that would be great. Again, I'm sorry our polls aren't working today. So, yeah, further to the reptile, right. So again, looking at, if we're more clear about, oh, I have a preference and this is not what's happening right now, the more we move toward full-on human or pocket reptile. if we're pushing hard to try to get others to be different so we don't have to feel how we feel, that doesn't serve us nor the environment. So I'm going to propose that we're more effective in full-on human and pocket reptile. And as we get to zipped up and full-on reptile, that's where our career limiting moves come from. Does that make sense when I say a career limiting move? I explode because I can't stand it any longer, that this is so stupid, or whatever may happen. So what are some career limiting moves that you all see either in yourselves occasionally or in people that you work with? If you can write that in the chat, that would be great. Does that make sense, what I say, career limiting move? Something that we do that doesn't support ourselves or working with the people on the team that we're working with. Unflexibility, lack of control, defensive reaction, outbursting in response to feedback. Not stepping up when you have the ability. Yeah, no patience, unapproachable, a lack of confidence. Withdrawing, being emotional. Yeah, people who can't say no. Sharing an opinion. Yeah, and no is an interesting one because for some of us, saying no is super easy. And for other people, saying no feels massively risky. And so again, to recognize we're all wired differently. Trying to please, that's another good one. Yeah, so hard to say no. Yeah, and to really start to recognize that different people are wired differently. And that for one person, saying no doesn't feel threatening at all. And for another, that may feel massively threatening. So we all live in a range of intensities. I don't know about you all, but I can live a pretty good full range of this thing. And we all have bad days. And for some of us, it feels like zipped up is how we live. For many of us, if we grew up in environments that were challenging and we had to hold it all together in order to survive, that just may be how we feel much of the time. And for others of us, we may have the perception that we operate from full-on human or pocket reptile most of the time, but perhaps some of the people in our lives might not share that perception. So it takes some openness and some curiosity to really see what's happening here. And thanks, Joy. You can go ahead and put us back to full screen again. So again, I want to pause and see if anyone has any questions before we move forward to the next section. Again, you just go to participants at the bottom and then just click raise hand if you have a question.
Yeah, so no questions at this point, Martha.
Okay, thanks so much, Joyce. And I know it's a lot to ask a question in front of, 98.
Oh wait, hold on one second. We have a question. Cindy, I see your hand raised. You should be able to speak now.
Yep. Sorry, I was trying to find the raise the hand function. I just wanted to ask for some clarification between the I'm okay versus the zipped up.
Yeah, so can you think of an example where, or a situation where you were feeling where what was happening really wasn't okay, but you were just acting like it was okay even though it wasn't, but it wasn't horrible, it was just like not great?
Okay, yeah.
And then can you think of another example where you were really having to hold it together?
Got it. Okay.
Yeah. So that's the difference. Zipped up is just I'm doing all I can to hold this together when this is not okay.
Perfect. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. Thanks for having the courage to ask a question in front of the group. Anyone else before we move on? Joy, I'm assuming that's a no.
Yeah, nope, not right now.
Okay, then let's pivot to the next section. So what I'd like to do is put you all into dyads, groups of 2. Joy will go ahead and put that together while I talk about what we're going to do. And I'd just like you to introduce yourselves to each other, say where you're from, what city you live in, or what city you're calling in from if you're somewhere else during all this craziness. And then just say a little bit about what intensity stages you often find yourself in at work. And again, we have full-on human, pocket reptile, really on fine, zipped up, and full-on reptile. And just use that as a lens to just briefly say, this is where I find myself often at work. And if you cover 4 of them often at work, great. If you more fall into 2, great. But just to be able to share for a moment with someone else. And we'll just put you in the dyad for, let's just do it for 3 minutes. So you just get a chance to get acquainted and share just a little bit so you're not just looking at the screen and listening to me the whole time. Joy, will you let me know when you're ready?
Yes, I am ready, and I will go ahead and put people into rooms now.
Okay. And when your time is finished, you'll just get a notice to come back, and you can go ahead and let that clock run out and then come on back. Okay, if people are starting to come back, we'll go ahead and wait till everyone gets back. It looks like we have about 1/4 of the people back from the breakout rooms, so we'll wait a moment and see what happens. People are slowly coming back. Okay, it looks like some people ended up in rooms alone by themselves. If that happens again, just leave the room, come back to the... come back to the main room, and Joy will go ahead and put you in another room because we don't want you there by yourselves. And when you're in a room, if you need to leave, you just hit the leave breakout room button. Okay, and some people say 3 minutes was not enough time. Yeah, this was just intended as a very brief greeting, and we'll give you more time in the next breakout. So thanks for that feedback. So let's get to our main topic for the day, which is anger. And I'd really like to talk with you a little bit about looking at these stages of intensity through the lens of anger. And I do have some things to say about this, but I'd like to get a sense of where you all are. And this may get a little awkward without having the polls on this one, because this is a little more complex, but I would really like to get a sense. So let's, I'll make a statement about anger, and if it's true for you, raise your hand, hold it up, we'll let people scroll through, then we'll go to the next one. And I have like 6 different responses, and I will read them all first so you know what they all are, and then we'll go ahead and do the raising of the hand so we can get a sense of where you are. So I'll just read them at first. It's, I avoid anger at all costs. That's number 1. Number 2 is, anger scares me. Number 3 is, I utilize anger to get my way. 4 is, I do all I can to prevent others from getting angry. Number 5 is, if people would just do what's right, I wouldn't have to feel so angry. And number 6 is, to me, it's bad or wrong to feel anger. Okay? So if you would just visually raise your hand and keep it up for a moment, who resonates the most with, I avoid anger at all costs? Okay, just keep your hands up so we can scroll through and see. Great, thank you. Who resonates with, anger scares me? Yeah, so we have hands on this one. So again, keep your hands up for a moment so we can scroll through and take a look. Thank you. Okay. I utilize anger to get my way. Put your hand up if that resonates with you. Yeah. Thanks for sharing, those of you that are raising your hands. I do all I can to prevent others from getting angry. Yeah, we have quite a few hands on that one. So again, leave your hand up for a moment so we can see. Great, thank you. If people would just do what's right, I wouldn't have to feel so darn angry. Yeah. That's great to recognize that. Thank you. And to me, it's bad or wrong to feel anger. If that resonates with you, please raise your hand. Yeah. Yeah, and a lot of us were brought up in environments where the idea was that it's bad or wrong to feel anger. So of course, some of us resonate with that. And yes, of course, you can have more than one. Thank you. So I'm going to propose that there are 3 primary ways that we humans relate with anger. 1 is anger acted out. We know this one. Someone explodes, they're yelling, they're waving their arms, they're growling, they speak to us through gritted teeth. Of course, it's a they, it's not us. I'm teasing. You know, they're irritated, it can be passive aggressive. That's all anger acted out. And then another way that we humans express anger is anger acted in. And what I mean by that is it's anger turned toward ourselves. And this one is sometimes a little bit tricky to recognize in ourselves. But this shows up as self-judgment, self-hatred, self-shaming. Oh, how could I have been so stupid to do that? That's an example of anger being turned toward myself. And the third way that we humans can hold anger is anger in its healthiest form, which is merely an emotional communication from our system. This is not working for me. So I'm going to say that again because I know it's a lot. One way we humans can have a relationship with anger is anger acted out. I explode, I yell, I wave my arms, I growl, I get irritated, I grit my teeth. I'm acting this out. It's not an inner irritation, it's I act out the irritation. I let the people around me know. Anger acted in is against myself. I judge myself, I hate myself, I shame myself. I tell myself I should be better than that. There's a lot of should in that one. And then the third is the healthy form of anger, which often gets lost as we grow up because people have a lot of ideas about anger. But anger is actually a really important healthy emotion because it tells us this is not working for me. And sometimes we feel that this is not working for me, and then we either jump into the acting out or acting in. But when we can have that relationship with anger where it's clarity, wow, that just does not work for me. There's a lot of power in that. And for a lot of us, this has all gotten entangled and collapsed, where the acting out, the acting in, and the healthy anger really aren't clear as three separate movements. And it can be quite confusing when that's not clear. So again, I want to pause here and see if anyone has a question, because I get that what I just said was a lot. Anyone have questions or need clarifications?
Oh, yep, hold on. Wendy, I am asking, give you to unmute yourself. All right, Wendy,
Hello.
go.
Hi, Wendy.
Hi. I just have a question about the healthy anger. If you could just clarify that a little bit for me.
Yeah. So a healthy anger is a communication from our system that says this is not working for me. And then from there, if I'm clear about that, then I can make choices. From there, then I can just take that information and use it as part of my navigation of life. So think about this. If I feel angry, this is not working for me, and then I leap into, could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way? It's now gotten quite messy, right?
Yes.
If I get angry and yell and shout, that's another version maybe of saying, could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way? But the healthy anger is being with that information. Wow, look at that. I can really feel this just does not work for me. Then I can take a look at what's happening around me and say, okay, that's what is right now. That's what's happening. And I'm clear this is not working for me. Okay, how do I want to navigate that? Which if we go to that intensity meter, you can see at that point when I can hold both, I'm actually quite over by pocket reptile and full on human. Does that help answer your question?
Yes, it does. Thank you so much.
You're so welcome. Other questions?
I am not seeing any at the moment.
Okay, very good. So with that, then we're going to go into playing with this, and we're going to go back into small groups. This time, Joy, we're going to do triads or groups of 3. So if you want to go ahead and get that set up while I'm talking about this. So what we're going to do is take a look at this through the lens of your work. So just take a moment to think of a situation that happened recently at your work. Could be that you felt angry. It could be that someone else appeared angry. And just think about that situation for a moment and think about how that felt for you. What was happening for you in that moment? And then we've talked a lot about this. Now look through the lens of where you are now with everything that we've talked about and look back on that and see what you see from where you are now through this lens of acting out, turning it against ourselves, acting in, or being with the communication from our system, the healthy anger. This is not working for me. And what I want you to do is take some time in your triad and really take a look at this. And so what I want you to do is to monologue. So not so much a big conversation, because that then gets other people's perspectives all in there, but just monologue. Just speak when it's your turn for 3 minutes, which sounds like a long time. It'll go quite fast. For 3 minutes, just monologue about what you're seeing from where you are now and how it felt then and what you're noticing and how this is for you. And if you've learned something, just whatever comes to you. And each of you will get a 3-minute turn, and Joy will send you a note through the breakouts that'll say when your 3 minutes is up, but you may want to time yourselves too, because it just comes up on the screen very briefly. And then after your 3 minutes, move on to the next person. And even if the bell rings or the note comes up when you're in mid-sentence, just trust that and pause there and move on to the next person so that each person gets the full 3 minutes. And then what I want you to do is take 5 minutes at the end and debrief in your small group. So just talk about how was that for you? What did you notice? What did you learn? Just whatever it is that's there for you. And then we'll come back to the big group and we'll debrief again. Does anyone have any questions about what it is that you're doing? Joy, do we have any questions?
No questions.
You guys are good.
And I am all set to put folks in rooms if we're ready.
Great. So 3 minutes each, plus 5 minutes at the end for debrief, and then you'll have a minute where you're coming back, and you can just go ahead and use that minute in whatever way feels right for you. Okay, thank you, Joy. Go ahead and put them in there. Ah, there we go. Okay, welcome back, everyone. Let's wait and let everyone else come back. Oh, welcome, Annette. Coming in for the last part. Okay, so let's give this just another moment to see if we have more people coming back.
Martha, I think most folks are back based on what I'm seeing.
Okay, great. Thanks, Joy. So I'd love to see just a show of hands like this. How many of you noticed or learned something new in speaking or listening? You just go ahead and hold your hands up so we can scroll through and see. It looks like quite a few of you. Great, thank you. So would any of you be willing to share a little bit about what you learned or what you noticed? Sometimes it's super helpful for others to get a little bit of cross-pollination going. So if you would like to share, go ahead and just click participants at the bottom and then click raise hand.
Great. Rosie, I see your hand up. I'm unmuting you. You should be able to.
Thank you.
Yes, there you go.
I appreciate being unmuted.
Hi, Rosie.
Hello. We had a really, I think, good conversation, about anger and kind of monologuing it to some degree and understanding that I think what is really powerful about this exercise it's being positioned as it takes the emotion out of the situation of, and being able to get kind of almost in a calmer state to be able to let your brain kind of fire and think through, how you want to react and how you want to approach it and ultimately how you feel really better about it and more in control than maybe where you are when you're full on reptilian.
Mm. Thanks so much, Rosie, for sharing.
You're welcome.
Do you have anyone else, Joy?
Yes, we do. Claudia, I am getting you unmuted now.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, I was privileged to be in a great group with Brian and Arlene, and we each told our stories independently, and then as we compared notes, they all had the common theme where we were in a situation where diplomacy was required. And so if a similar situation had happened, at least for me, like with my spouse, I would probably say very directly, I don't like your attitude, something like that. But we all were in the position where we felt that we needed to be very mindful of being diplomatic and preserving an important business relationship.
Thank you. I see we have a note from someone here too that they learned an interesting perspective from a person in a leadership role, how anger might be portrayed and experienced differently based on your position in the food chain. Yeah, absolutely. Joy, do you have anyone else?
Yep, Sylvia, I am unmuting you.
Hi there.
Yep.
Hi there. Yeah, I had a fantastic group as well. And one thing that I think was a common theme across all of our situations and stories that we shared was the importance of communication and understanding what the non-negotiables were within a situation and where you do have flexibility. So knowing communication styles, knowing how to get stuff across, that there's workshops out there so you can learn different team members' communication styles. Very useful things that came out of this.
Great. Thank you. Joy, anyone else?
Not seeing anyone else, but if anyone else does have something to share, raise your hand and we'll go ahead and unmute you. Oh, all right, Kim, I am getting you unmuted.
Hi. Well, the other person in my triad just reminded me how much COVID is affecting all of us. And I just thought that that was a good thing to keep in mind during all of this. It's just making us all a little bit more angry than we might have been if it weren't in the period of the pandemic.
Yeah, definitely more pressured and stressed, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and sometimes that does show up as anger. Thank you. Anything else, Joy? Anyone else?
Not seeing anyone right now. Last call. All right, not seeing anyone at the moment, Martha.
Okay, great. Well, thank you to all of you for participating in that. So just to wrap up, we can equate anger with full-on reptile. If someone acts out anger, we can go, oh, they're in full-on reptile. But I'm going to propose that it's more about our relationship to our emotions, our relationship to anger or any emotion that determines whether we're on the full-on reptile end of the continuum or closer to pocket reptile, or in a really great day, maybe even closer to full-on human. And so looking at what our relationship is with these emotions within ourselves and how willing and able we are to recognize and be with these emotions, anger being the topic of today, rather than either trying to suppress, which often ends up with things squirting out, like I always say, peanut butter and jelly on toast. I mean, that's a great visual, right? Hot toast with peanut butter and jelly. You go to take a bite, it goes everywhere. So when we try to suppress anger, often it squirts out like that. But the more we can include our emotions and really include healthy anger, oh, there's really something here that isn't working for me. And as Kim said so clearly, COVID and what we're having to do with navigating COVID isn't working for lots of us. And that adds a lot of stress. But when we can hold okay, this is what is right now. This is the reality of what is. There's COVID and it's not easy. Okay. So given that, what's my preference? More possibilities open up. We have more, there's more possibility to navigate in a way where we're responding rather than just, or turning it against ourselves. So an unhealthy relationship with anger may well end up having us feel zipped up, full on reptile. And it's really our relationship that makes the difference, not whether we feel anger or not. And that's sometimes a tricky one to kind of really get our arms around. It's not about feeling the anger. It's about our relationship with that and what do we do with it. Sometimes I look at this as like if I'm trying to get the world to rearrange so that the world works in a way that I don't have to feel anger, another version of could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way. In a way, that's kind of like rearranging the chairs on the Titanic, right? It takes an incredible amount of energy to try to rearrange the world around us in order to have it work so we don't have to feel the way we feel. And my experience is that rarely works for me. Often it just ends up having everything escalate even higher and come into being even more difficult while I'm still having to navigate how it is that I feel. So just starting to have a little more precise noticing of what's happening here. How does this work? How does this work for me? And as we get more precise in noticing in ourselves, we can also get more precise in noticing what's happening in other people. And we may not know for sure, but we can get a whiff. We can have a hypothesis of what might be going on over there. And then we can look and see how is it we want to navigate? What do we want to do? So again, remembering we asked, could you please be different so I don't have to feel that way? And for most of us, when we looked at when someone else asks us to do that, it doesn't feel very good. People said they felt irritated, they felt angry, they felt helpless, they felt smaller, they felt like they were less effective. So I'm hoping we're starting to see that our relationship to our reactions, and that really impacts where we operate from, as opposed to what's happening on the outside. And for many of us, that's a pretty subtle difference that sometimes is easier to see than others. But it's our relationship with what's happening on the inside that really is where we can ground more in ourselves, where we have more power and where we have more capacity to really respond to what's happening in life. Claudia says one of her favorite quotes, it's easier to put on the slippers than try to carpet the world. That's awesome, Claudia. Thank you. That's great. I've not read that one before. So I'm going to reiterate what we've covered. We've covered tracking our reactions to different people from just looking at their image. Remember at the beginning, we were scrolling through the pages and just looking to see how we felt by the images. We looked at the intensity meter from full-on human to full-on reptile, looking to see where are we in that. Do we have default places? Do different circumstances take us different places? This big trap of could you please be different so I don't have to feel this way, which really can just entangle us in all kinds of things, and starting to get more clear about that. And then anger acted out, anger acted in, and healthy anger. And we looked at how is this for you in your triad with your triad mates at work. And it seemed like we learned some things about how it is for other people and maybe discovered some new things in ourselves. And unless there are any last minute questions, I'm going to go ahead and take us into completion. So one more moment if you have a question before we go. Joy?
Nope, not seeing any questions at the moment.
Very good, very good. So thanks so much for being here with me today and having me here. Linda, thank you, Joyce, and the whole group at AOPA. And Joy, thanks so much for your technical support.
You're welcome. I believe Linda Wise just has a few concluding remarks, and I know on behalf of AOPA, we greatly thank you, Martha. Linda?
Yeah, thanks, Joy. And thank you, Martha. I mean, what an insightful presentation. It was just fabulous. And I really appreciate the way you took us into breakout sessions and got us all to participate. I, for one, really felt connected with the group, which I wasn't sure how we were going to pull that off with 100 people in a virtual world, but you certainly made it happen, and that's what makes this event special. So thank you very much for that. And just a follow-up to everyone, you will be receiving Martha's book, as Joyce mentioned. So that will be sent to the address that you put on your registration. And for those that haven't registered for the AOPA Assembly, please do so. You can do that at aopanet.org. We have a lot of great sessions planned as far as education workshops, business sessions, and a fantastic exhibit hall platform to visit. So please register for AOPA and come see us again. And again, we appreciate you taking the time out of your day to join us today, and really appreciate everything you do for the profession and especially women. So please enjoy the rest of Women's Equality Day. Thank you, everyone.